The Galactic Senate had survived for nearly 12,000 cycles. Empires had risen and collapsed beneath its endless silver domes. Entire species had vanished into history while the Senate remained untouched, eternal, and feared across the stars. But on this day, silence ruled the chamber. Thousands of alien delegates filled the colossal hall, their glowing holographic banners drifting above them like ghosts. The air itself felt heavy as a massive image of Earth rotated slowly in the center of the Senate floor. A small blue world. Primitive. Divided. Weak. Supreme Commander Vila of the Karen Dominion stepped forward, his black war armor reflecting the cold lights of the chamber. His claws locked behind his back as his yellow predator eyes stared at the human planet. At last, he announced, his voice thundering through the Senate, humanity stands alone. Murmurs spread instantly. The Karen Dominion was the most feared military empire in known space. Entire civilizations surrendered the moment Karen fleets entered orbit. Their war moons had shattered planets. Their armies had exterminated species that resisted. And now, they wanted Earth. Vila raised one claw toward the rotating hologram. Humans are emotionally unstable, violent, divided among themselves. Their technology barely rivals secondary civilizations. A ripple of mocking laughter echoed through the Senate. They are weak, Vila continued, and weak species exist only to serve stronger ones. More laughter followed, but one figure did not laugh. Near the back of the chamber sat Ambassador Seraphine of the Valari Collective, an ancient silver-skinned species known for observing civilizations long before first contact. She slowly stood, and the entire Senate became quiet. The Valari rarely spoke. When they did, civilizations listened. Seraphine's pale eyes remained fixed on Earth's hologram. Do not attack humanity. The words struck the chamber harder than any weapon. Vila narrowed his eyes. You oppose the Dominion. I oppose your extinction, Seraphine answered calmly. A wave of whispers spread through the Senate. Vila stepped forward aggressively. The humans possess no significant fleets. They do not need them. Their colonies are poorly defended. For now, they are fractured by politics and united by war. Vila's expression darkened. The commander had expected fear, not resistance. Explain yourself, he demanded. For several seconds, Seraphine remained silent. Then she spoke words that chilled the chamber. Humans are the only species in the galaxy that evolved as persistence predators. Confused murmurs spread among younger species. Seraphine continued. Before they built ships, before they split the atom, humans hunted creatures larger and faster than themselves. The hologram shifted. Ancient human hunters appeared on the Senate screens. They did not win because they were stronger, Seraphine said softly. They won because they never stopped. The chamber fell silent again. They chased prey across deserts for days, weeks if necessary. While other predators rested, humans continued. While others slept, humans tracked. Eventually their prey collapsed from exhaustion. Vila scoffed. You compare primitive hunting behavior to interstellar warfare. Seraphine finally looked directly at him. Yes. The temperature in the chamber suddenly felt colder. When humans choose an enemy, she said quietly, they do not stop hunting. A nervous senator from the outer systems raised a trembling hand. That is impossible. Every species retreats eventually. Seraphine's expression remained emotionless. Humans do not. The giant holograms shifted again. Now ruined alien fleets appeared across the chamber. Destroyed worlds. Burning warships. Dead empires. These are not victories, Seraphine said. These are warnings. Vila clenched his claws. The Dominion fears no species. Then you are already dead. Gasps erupted across the Senate floor. Several guards immediately aimed weapons at Seraphine, but she ignored them completely. The humans possess a survival instinct unlike anything in this galaxy, she continued. Attack them once, and they will remember for generations. Vila laughed coldly. Good. Fear makes conquest easier. Seraphine slowly shook her head. You misunderstand. For the first time, genuine concern appeared in her voice. The humans are not the prey. The chamber lights, dimmed as Earth, continued rotating silently above them. Blue oceans. White clouds. A harmless little world. Vila stared at it for several long seconds. Then he smiled. Prepare the invasion fleets. And across the Senate chamber, Seraphine closed her eyes in sorrow. Because she knew something the Dominion did not. The moment humans were attacked, the hunt would begin. 3 months after the Senate meeting, the Karen Dominion entered human space. No declaration. No negotiation. No warning. Only war. Across the outer colonies, human defense stations suddenly vanished from communication networks. Mining worlds stopped transmitting. Cargo fleets disappeared in silence. Then the first images arrived. Burning cities. Orbital stations ripped apart. Entire colonies reduced to molten ash beneath Karen plasma bombardments. The Galactic Senate watched in stunned silence as the Dominion advanced deeper into human territory with terrifying speed. World after world surrendered. Others were annihilated. To the rest of the galaxy, it looked exactly like every other Karen conquest in history. Fast. Brutal. Inevitable. Commander Vila stood aboard his flagship, the Eternal Judgment, observing Earth from orbit for the first time. The blue planet glowed peacefully beneath the massive invasion fleet. Thousands of warships surrounded the world like predators circling wounded prey. Vila smiled. So this is humanity. One of his officers stepped forward. Human governments are requesting negotiations. Denied. They are offering surrender terms. Denied. The officer hesitated carefully. There are civilian evacuation requests. Vila's yellow eyes narrowed. Denied. The bridge became silent. Even some Karen officers exchanged uncertain looks. The Dominion conquered worlds. But total extermination was rare. Vila noticed their hesitation immediately. Humans must become an example, he said coldly. The galaxy obeys through fear. Far below, Earth's defense satellites activated. Tiny compared to Karen warships. Pathetic. Within minutes, orbital combat began. Human missiles streaked upward through the atmosphere like desperate sparks against a storm. Several Karen destroyers exploded under concentrated fire, surprising the Dominion fleet. But it changed nothing. Karen battlecruisers unleashed plasma bombardments across Earth's orbital defenses. Firestorms erupted above the planet. Entire defense grids disappeared in seconds. Still, the humans kept fighting. Vila watched calmly as smaller human ships rammed Karen vessels rather than retreat. Pilots continued attacking even while burning alive inside shattered cockpits. One damaged human cruiser, engines destroyed and half its hull missing, accelerated directly toward a Karen carrier. They are suicidal, one officer muttered. The human ship exploded against the carrier's shields. Seconds later, the carrier detonated from internal reactor failure. The bridge went silent. Vila's expression darkened slightly. Interesting. The battle continued for hours. Human forces were hopelessly outmatched, yet they refused surrender again and again. Every destroyed station fought until the last second. Every defense platform fired until completely melted. Every human ship died attacking. No retreat. No mercy. No fear. By the end of the invasion's first day, Earth's orbital defenses were gone. Smoke covered entire continents. Millions were dead. And still, humans continued broadcasting resistance messages across every open frequency. One transmission repeated endlessly through the battlefield. We are still here. Again. And again. And again. Vila finally grew irritated. Silence them. Karen warships targeted Earth's communication centers. Massive plasma strikes slammed into cities across the planet. Oceans boiled near impact zones. Entire coastlines vanished beneath fire. Then something happened that none of the Karen expected. The human transmissions changed. No more panic. No more surrender offers. Only silence. Complete silence. One nervous officer glanced at Vila. Commander, human military frequencies have disappeared. Because they are dead. But the officer looked uncertain. There is something else. He activated a recording intercepted moments earlier from Earth. A human voice echoed across the bridge. Calm, cold, emotionless. This is Admiral Elias Ward of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Static crackled behind him. You attacked civilian worlds. Another burst of static. You burned our oceans. Vila listened silently. Then the voice spoke again. And now, humanity declares total war. The transmission ended. Several officers laughed nervously. But Vila did not. Because for the first time since entering human space, he felt uneasy. Hours later, Dominion forces landed on Earth. They expected surrender. Instead, they found empty cities, abandoned military bases, deserted streets, no civilians, no governments, no armies, only silence. Entire populations had vanished underground before the invasion fleet could finish orbital bombardment. The humans were gone. And then the attacks began. Karen patrols disappeared first. Then entire landing zones lost communication. Soldiers vanished inside ruined cities without a trace. Bodies were discovered hours later. Armor ripped apart. Weapons missing. One Karen survivor was recovered from a destroyed outpost nearly 40 kilometers from the main invasion force. The soldier was shaking uncontrollably. What attacked you? Vila demanded through holographic interrogation. The survivor's eyes trembled with terror. It kept following us. What did? The soldier's breathing became frantic. The humans. Silence filled the bridge again. Then the survivor whispered words that spread fear across the Dominion fleet for the first time in history. They never stopped hunting. The Karen Dominion controlled Earth's orbit within 48 hours. But they never truly controlled the planet. At first, Commander Vila believed the remaining human resistance would collapse quickly. That was how every conquered species behaved. Once their capitals burned and their fleets were destroyed, survivors usually surrendered. Humans did not. Instead, they vanished. Entire cities became silent graveyards beneath black smoke and burning skies. Streets stood empty. Military bases were abandoned. Factories were cold. But every night, Karen soldiers disappeared. At first, it was only small patrol units. Then armored squads. Then entire occupation camps stopped responding. No distress calls. No survivors. Only silence. Deep beneath the ruins of old Chicago, Sergeant Nathan Hale moved carefully through the darkness with 12 other human resistance fighters. The underground tunnels shook constantly from orbital bombardments above them. Dust rained from cracked ceilings while distant explosions echoed through the ancient subway systems. A young resistance fighter beside Hale checked her rifle nervously. They're increasing patrols again. Hale nodded. Good. The soldier looked confused. Good. They're scared now. Far above them, Karen forces flooded ruined cities with drones and armored walkers. Massive searchlights scanned the darkness while soldiers moved street to street hunting for survivors. But the humans were always gone before they arrived. And when Karen troops lowered their guard, the attacks came. Fast. Silent. Brutal. A Karen convoy moving through the remains of New York suddenly exploded when hidden explosives collapsed entire streets beneath them. Survivors attempting escape found human snipers waiting inside shattered skyscrapers. No mercy. No prisoners. The Dominion responded with greater force. More troops. More bombardments. More executions. But every human killed only seemed to create 10 more fighters. The war was changing. And Vila could feel it. Inside the Occupation Command Center built above the ruins of Washington, D.C., Dominion officers gathered around a tactical hologram showing hundreds of flashing red zones across Earth. All resistance sectors are expanding. One officer reported nervously. That is impossible, another argued. Their fleets are destroyed. The civilians are fighting now. Vila's eyes narrowed. Explain. The officer swallowed carefully. Teachers, factory workers, engineers, even children are assisting resistance operations. A cold silence filled the room. Another hologram activated. Human attacks across the planet. Railguns hidden inside mountains. Improvised bombs destroying armored divisions. Civilian transport ships being converted into suicide attack vessels. They are weaponizing everything, the officer whispered. Vila clenched his claws tightly. No species fought like this. Most civilizations valued survival above victory. Humans valued revenge. That terrified him more. Suddenly alarms erupted across the command center. A Karen communications officer turned pale. "Commander, we lost contact with Outpost Theta 7. Vila slammed a claw against the table. "How many troops?" "Over 800. Dispatch reinforcements immediately." Hours later, Dominion gunships arrived at Theta 7. What they discovered changed the entire invasion. The outpost was dark, silent, destroyed from the inside. Karen soldiers lay scattered across corridors and defensive positions. Some had been shot, others stabbed. Several were missing helmets, armor, even limbs. But the strangest part, the human attackers had vanished again. One Dominion captain slowly walked through the ruined command room. What kind of species does this? Then he noticed words carved into the metal wall in human language. "We are still here. Back in orbit." Vila studied the footage repeatedly. The words disturbed him more than the massacre itself. Because they were not written in anger. They were written like a promise. Meanwhile, deep beneath Earth's surface, humanity was changing. Old governments no longer mattered. Old rivalries disappeared. Nations that once hated each other now fought side by side. Every surviving human shared one purpose: make the invaders suffer. Admiral Elias Ward stood inside humanity's underground command bunker somewhere beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around him, massive digital maps displayed the destruction of Earth. Millions dead. Entire oceans poisoned. Cities erased forever. A young officer approached quietly. "Sir, civilian casualties have passed 100 million. The bunker became silent. Ward closed his eyes for several seconds. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. Cold, controlled, dangerous. "Then we stop surviving." The officer looked confused. "Sir?" Ward turned toward the tactical display showing Karen fleets in orbit. "We start hunting." Within hours, secret human shipyards hidden beneath the moon activated for the first time. Ancient military protocols buried decades earlier came online. Experimental warships awakened inside underground oceans beneath Mars. Across the solar system, dark signals spread through hidden human networks. Not public channels. Not military frequencies. Something older. Something prepared long ago for humanity's worst nightmare. One classified message reached every surviving commander. No retreat. No surrender. Hunt them all. And for the first time since the invasion began, the humans stopped running. 3 weeks after the invasion of Earth, the Karen Dominion believed victory was near. Major human cities were destroyed. Orbital defenses were gone. Most military satellites had been eliminated. To the Galactic Senate, humanity looked finished. But the Senate no longer received reports from the outer Karen fleets. Entire battle groups had started disappearing near the edges of the solar system. No distress calls. No survivors. Only silence. Commander Vila stood aboard the Eternal Judgment, staring at tactical displays with growing frustration. Another fleet lost. A communications officer nodded nervously. "Yes, Commander. Scout Fleet 9 vanished near Neptune orbit." "Destroyed by what?" "We don't know." Vila's claws tightened. The Dominion possessed enough firepower to crush empires. Their fleets carried planet-killing weapons capable of sterilizing worlds. And yet something was hunting them. One officer activated recovered sensor footage from the lost fleet. Static flooded the screen. Darkness. Then suddenly, a massive shadow appeared between the stars. Not one ship. Hundreds. Black warships emerging silently from deep space with no engine signatures. No energy readings. No warning. The footage shook violently as Karen ships exploded one after another. Railgun rounds tore through destroyers at impossible speeds. Entire cruisers vanished beneath concentrated missile storms. Then the recording ended. Silence filled the bridge. Vila stared at the frozen image. Human ships. But unlike anything previously encountered. Their designs were darker. Heavier. Built for war alone. One officer spoke carefully. These vessels were not part of any known human fleet. Vila felt something unfamiliar crawl into his chest. Unease. Where did they come from? No one answered. Because the truth was worse than any of them imagined. Decades before first contact with alien civilizations, humanity had feared one thing above all else. Extinction. And so they prepared. Secret shipyards had been built beneath lunar craters. Weapons banned by human governments were hidden beyond Pluto. Artificial intelligences too dangerous for public knowledge were sealed inside military vaults. Humanity hoped they would never be needed. Until now. Deep beneath the surface of the moon, Admiral Elias Ward walked through the command deck of the Nightfall, flagship of the Void Fleet. Unlike normal human ships, the Nightfall carried no bright lights or polished halls. Only dark steel. Weapons. And soldiers. Thousands of them. Every person aboard had lost someone during the invasion. Families. Children. Entire worlds. The atmosphere inside the ship felt less like a military command and more like controlled rage. A tactical officer approached Ward. Target acquired. A holographic image appeared above the command table. Karen's supply fleet. 200 ships. Minimal escorts. Ward stared at it silently. Attack pattern. Wolf strike formation. Ward nodded once. No survivors. The officer hesitated slightly. Sir, that includes prisoners. Ward's eyes remained fixed on the hologram. The Dominion burned Earth. The hesitation vanished instantly. Yes, Admiral. Moments later, the Void Fleet entered combat. No warnings. No negotiations. Human ships emerged from the darkness at nearly point-blank range. Stealth systems concealed them until the exact moment of attack. Then hell erupted. Mass drivers punched through Karen armor like paper. Autonomous drone swarms flooded enemy corridors. Boarding pods crashed directly into Dominion warships. And inside those corridors, humans fought like monsters. Helmet cameras later recovered from destroyed Karen vessels showed terrifying scenes. Human soldiers advancing through plasma fire without slowing. Wounded troops continuing to fight after losing limbs. Boarding teams hunting fleeing Karen soldiers room by room. One recording captured a terrified Dominion officer screaming, "They won't stop." Then static. The Karen had invaded expecting civilized warfare. Instead, they had awakened something ancient inside humanity. Persistence. Predatory endurance. The instinct to hunt until nothing remained. Within 20 minutes, the entire Dominion supply fleet was gone. Not disabled. Destroyed. Every escape pod was hunted down before transmission signals could activate. Back aboard the Eternal Judgment, Vila received the combat report in stunned silence. Total losses. All ships destroyed, Commander. Human casualties. The officer swallowed carefully. Unknown. Vila slowly turned toward the stars outside the bridge window. For the first time in his military career, he realized the war was no longer under his control. And across the galaxy, rumors began spreading between star systems. Stories of black human warships appearing from nowhere. Stories of fleets vanishing overnight. Stories of human soldiers who never retreated, never surrendered, never stopped hunting. The Galactic Senate watched in growing horror as one truth became impossible to deny. The Valari ambassador had been right. Humanity was not fighting for victory anymore. Humanity was fighting for extinction-level revenge. And the hunt had only just begun. The first Karen fleet vanished near Jupiter. The second disappeared beyond Saturn. By the third loss, panic began spreading across Dominion space. For centuries, the Karen Empire had been unstoppable. Their fleets conquered worlds faster than most civilizations could even react. Entire species surrendered the moment Dominion banners appeared in orbit. But now, Karen ships were running, and humans were following them. Across the galaxy, emergency broadcasts flooded interstellar networks. Trade routes closed overnight. Civilian transports changed course to avoid human-controlled sectors. Even pirate clans abandoned entire systems after reports of black warships emerging silently from deep space. The stories grew worse every cycle. Human boarding teams venting enemy ships into space. Dominion admirals hunted across multiple systems. Entire military outposts erased without warning. And always, the same message left behind. We are still here. Inside the Galactic Senate, fear replaced arrogance. The massive chamber that once laughed at humanity now echoed with nervous whispers as senators argued desperately across the hall. This war must end. The humans are destabilizing entire sectors. Karen refugees are flooding neutral systems. One senator slammed his claws against the table. The Dominion started this. Another immediately shouted back. And humanity is finishing it. At the center of the chamber stood Ambassador Seraphine of the Valari Collective. Silent. Watching. A younger senator turned toward her nervously. You knew this would happen. Seraphine's pale eyes remained fixed on the Senate floor. Yes. Then stop them. For the first time, genuine sadness crossed her face. You still do not understand. The chamber became silent again. When humans lose everything, she whispered, they stop fearing consequences. Far from the Senate, the war continued growing darker. Deep inside Dominion territory, Commander Vila stood aboard the damaged Eternal Judgment, staring at casualty reports scrolling endlessly across his command screens. 37 fleets destroyed. 200 colonies lost. Military production collapsing. And worse than all of it, human forces were getting stronger. Each battle made them deadlier, smarter, more ruthless. One exhausted officer approached carefully. Commander, another outer defense station has gone silent. Vila barely reacted now. Cause? Unknown. Again. The officer nodded slowly. No one said the word aloud anymore. Humans. Because simply speaking about them now made crews nervous. Dominion soldiers stopped sleeping properly. Entire warships kept full combat alerts active 24 hours a day. False alarms triggered constantly after frightened crews imagined human stealth ships hiding nearby. The hunters had become hunted. Then came the footage from Korvac Station. The recording spread through military networks faster than Dominion Command could suppress it. A damaged security camera showed Karen soldiers defending a corridor during a human boarding assault. Gunfire exploded across the hallway. Plasma rounds tore through walls. One by one, Dominion troops fell back in terror. Then the humans appeared through smoke and sparks. Black armored figures advancing slowly through heavy fire. Not running. Walking. Like they knew the battle was already over. One wounded Karen soldier screamed while firing wildly. They keep coming. Another soldier tried retreating. A human rail round tore through him instantly. Then the recording captured something that shattered Dominion morale completely. One human soldier removed his damaged helmet. Not to intimidate. Not to threaten. Simply to look directly at the terrified survivors. Cold eyes. No anger. No mercy. Only purpose. The recording ended moments later when the station self-destructed. After that video spread, desertions began across the Dominion. Entire crews abandoned ships. Outer colonies surrendered without fighting. Rumors claimed humans were impossible to kill. That they could track ships across hyperspace. That they hunted enemies for generations. Some stories were exaggerated. Others were true. Meanwhile, aboard the Nightfall, Admiral Elias Ward received reports from resistance cells across Earth. Human forces were slowly reclaiming the planet. Karen occupation zones collapsed daily beneath constant attacks. But victory brought no celebration. Only silence. Ward stood alone inside the observation deck staring at Earth below. Large parts of the planet still burned. Entire oceans remained black from bombardments. Millions of dead civilians. Children. Families. A young officer entered quietly. "Sir, Senate representatives are requesting peace negotiations." Ward did not turn around. "Denied." "Sir, they claim the Dominion wishes to surrender." Still no response. The officer hesitated. "Should I send a reply?" Ward finally spoke. "Yes." The officer waited. Ward's voice became ice. "Tell them humanity remembers every grave." Hours later, the message reached the Galactic Senate. And for the first time in recorded galactic history, the Senate feared a species more than war itself. Because the humans were no longer fighting for territory, or resources, or survival. Humanity was hunting. And the galaxy was beginning to realize something horrifying. Humans would never stop. 6 months after the invasion of Earth, the Karen Dominion was collapsing. Entire sectors had fallen silent. Military factories burned across conquered worlds. Supply lines no longer existed. Every hyperspace route carried the same fear. Human ships. The once mighty Dominion fleet now traveled in massive formations, terrified of being isolated. Even then, warships disappeared constantly at the edges of convoys. The humans attacked without pattern, without mercy, without rest. Commander Vila stood inside the ruined bridge of the Eternal Judgment, staring at the giant holographic map of known space. Red warning markers covered nearly every Dominion sector. For the first time in centuries, the Karen Empire was losing. One exhausted officer approached cautiously. "Commander, the Senate has ordered immediate withdrawal from human territories." Vila's claws tightened. Withdrawal. The word tasted like poison. "We still possess superior numbers." "Not for long," the officer answered quietly. Vila turned sharply toward him. "What did you say?" The officer swallowed hard. "Every battle with the humans costs us more ships than we can replace. Meanwhile," he hesitated, "human production continues increasing." That was the terrifying part. Humanity should have collapsed months ago. Earth had burned. Its fleets were shattered. Millions were dead. Yet somehow, humans were becoming stronger. Because every surviving factory had transformed into a war machine. Civilian industries now built weapons. Mining colonies produced ammunition non-stop. Even damaged human ships returned to battle covered in crude repairs and heavier armor. The Dominion fought for conquest. Humans fought because they had nothing left except revenge. Suddenly alarms exploded across the bridge. A tactical officer shouted, "Emergency transmission from Orion Gate." The entire bridge froze. Orion Gate was the Dominion's largest hyperspace junction. Nearly 40% of military logistics passed through the station. If Orion Gate fell, the Empire would be split in half. On screen, Vila ordered immediately. A damaged hologram flickered to life. The image showed chaos. Explosions ripped through massive defense platforms surrounding Orion Gate. Burning warships drifted across space while emergency sirens screamed in the background. A wounded Karen admiral appeared on screen. "Commander, we've been ambushed." Vila narrowed his eyes. "How many human ships?" The admiral looked terrified. "We don't know." "What do you mean you don't know?" "They came from inside hyperspace." Silence hit the bridge. Impossible. No species could safely navigate active hyperspace corridors without exiting first. But the humans had somehow found a way. The admiral continued speaking rapidly. "They bypassed outer defenses completely. Boarding vessels are already inside the station." Gunfire erupted behind him. Screams echoed through the transmission. Then a deep metallic sound shook the room around the admiral. Heavy footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. The admiral turned pale. "They are here." The transmission ended. Static consumed the screen. Vila immediately slammed his claws onto the command table. All fleets to Orion Gate now. But deep inside himself, he already knew they were too late. Hours earlier, Admiral Elias Ward stood aboard the Nightfall watching Orion Gate through the darkness of space. Around him floated the largest human fleet ever assembled. Not polished Senate fleets. Not ceremonial warships. Predators. Thousands of black vessels waited silently beyond sensor range while boarding craft launched toward the station. A tactical officer approached Ward. Outer defenses neutralized. Civilian casualties. Minimal. Most station workers evacuated after resistance cells warned them. Ward nodded once. He had no interest in innocent lives anymore. Only the Dominion. Another officer activated a tactical projection. Karen reinforcements are accelerating toward Orion Gate. Estimated arrival. 3 hours. Ward looked calmly at the map. Perfect. The officers exchanged uncertain glances. Then realization spread slowly across the bridge. This was not an attack. It was bait. Humanity had spent months retreating strategically across multiple sectors, allowing surviving Dominion fleets to regroup near Orion Gate. Every surviving major Karen fleet was now moving toward a single location. Exactly where the humans wanted them. A young officer stared at the tactical display nervously. "Sir, if this fails." Ward finally turned toward him. "It won't." There was something terrifying about the way he said it. Not confidence. Certainty. Outside the bridge windows, the massive human fleet began moving silently toward the station. Weapons charging. Railguns aligning. Missile bays opening like mechanical jaws. For generations, the galaxy believed humanity was weak because humans fought among themselves. Now the galaxy understood the truth. Humanity's greatest strength had never been peace. It was war. And at Orion Gate, the humans were about to unleash it completely. Orion Gate burned like a dying star. Massive defense platforms drifted through space in shattered pieces while hundreds of destroyed warships floated across the battlefield like metal corpses. Explosions flashed endlessly through the darkness as human and Karen fleets collided in the largest battle the galaxy had ever witnessed. And in the center of it all, humanity waited. Commander Vila's fleet emerged from hyperspace directly beside Orion Gate. Thousands of Dominion warships filled the stars. Carriers, battle cruisers, planet killers. The remaining strength of the Karen Empire had arrived. For a brief moment, Vila felt relief. At last, the humans would face overwhelming force. "At maximum assault formation," he ordered coldly. "Crush them." Dominion fleets surged forward. Then the trap closed. Entire sectors of space suddenly lit up as hidden human stealth ships activated around Orion Gate from every direction. Thousands. No. Tens of thousands. Vila's eyes widened. Impossible. The humans had hidden entire fleets inside debris fields, abandoned stations, even inside wreckage from previous battles. Every escape route vanished instantly. A tactical officer screamed. "They surrounded us." Before Vila could respond, the first human railgun volley struck. The stars themselves seemed to split apart. Hypersonic tungsten rounds tore through Dominion front lines at impossible speeds. Battleships exploded instantly as kinetic impacts ripped directly through shields and reactors alike. Then came the missiles. Entire clouds of human warheads flooded the battlefield from all directions, weaving between destroyed ships like swarms of predators. Dominion fleets opened fire desperately. Plasma beams filled space. Fighters collided. Ships detonated everywhere. But the humans kept advancing. Relentlessly. Like a tide that refused to stop. Inside the nightfall, Admiral Elias Ward stood silently while battle reports flooded across tactical screens. Karen left flank collapsing. Enemy carriers destroyed. Boarding teams inside Central Command ships. Ward said nothing. His eyes remained fixed on Orion Gate. On Vila. This battle had never been about victory. It was execution. Meanwhile, inside the Dominion fleet, panic spread rapidly. "Human ships behind us. Our hyperspace lanes are blocked. We're trapped." Vila roared furiously. "Break through their lines." But every attempted retreat ended the same way. Human ships pursued fleeing vessels instantly. Fast attack craft hunted escape pods. Stealth destroyers appeared ahead of retreating fleets before they could jump. No matter where the Dominion turned, humans were already there. A terrified officer looked toward Vila. How are they predicting our movements? Vila slowly realized the horrifying truth. The humans were not reacting anymore. They were anticipating, learning, hunting. Every battle had taught them more about Dominion strategy, and now they knew exactly how their enemy thought. Suddenly alarms screamed across the bridge. Boarding pods incoming. The Eternal Judgment shook violently as multiple human boarding craft slammed directly into the hull. Vila drew his plasma blade immediately. All security teams repel boarders. But deep inside himself, fear finally appeared. Because he remembered Seraphine's warning. When humans choose an enemy, they never stop hunting. Corridor fighting erupted across the flagship. Karen soldiers fired desperately through smoke-filled hallways while human boarding teams advanced with terrifying precision. Every camera feed showed the same thing. Humans moving forward no matter the casualties. No hesitation. No retreat. One Dominion officer watched in horror as a wounded human soldier continued fighting after losing an arm. Another activated explosives while surrounded just to destroy a reactor room. "They're insane," someone screamed. No. Not insane. Determined. Inside the main command corridor, Vila finally saw them with his own eyes. Black armored figures emerging through sparks and fire. Human soldiers. Silent. Walking slowly through heavy plasma fire as if death no longer mattered. Vila attacked first. His plasma blade cut through one human instantly. Another shot him in the shoulder. Vila killed that one too. But more kept coming. Always more. One human soldier removed his helmet. A scarred woman stared directly at Vila with cold gray eyes. "You burned Earth," she said quietly. Vila raised his blade again. The woman aimed her rifle calmly. "And now you run." Before he could react, explosions tore through the command deck. The Eternal Judgment lurched violently as human saboteurs destroyed its engines from inside the ship. Emergency alarms flooded the bridge. Critical reactor failure. Main drives offline. Vila staggered backward as smoke consumed the chamber. Outside the damaged flagship, the battle was ending. The Dominion fleet was collapsing completely. Thousands of Karen ships attempted escape. Thousands were hunted down. One by one. System by system. Exactly as humanity promised. No enemy escapes. And across the battlefield, terrified Dominion crews began transmitting surrender requests on every frequency. But for many humans, mercy had died with Earth. The Battle of Orion Gate ended after 17 hours. By the time the fighting stopped, the stars themselves seemed covered in wreckage. Burning Dominion warships drifted endlessly through space. Destroyed carriers split apart silently while emergency lights blinked inside shattered hulls like dying embers. The greatest military empire in galactic history had fallen. Not slowly. Not honorably. Hunted to extinction. Across the battlefield, surviving Karen crews transmitted surrender requests desperately on every open frequency. Some begged. Some cried. Others simply repeated the same words over and over. "Please, stop." But millions of humans still remembered burning cities. Dead oceans. Children buried beneath orbital fire. For many soldiers, mercy no longer existed. Inside the shattered remains of the Eternal Judgment, Commander Vila dragged himself through smoke-filled corridors while alarms screamed around him. The flagship was dying. Reactor systems failing. Life support collapsing. Bodies everywhere. Human and Karen alike. For the first time in his life, Vila understood defeat. Not battlefield defeat. Extinction. Heavy footsteps echoed behind him. Vila slowly turned. Admiral Elias Ward stood at the far end of the corridor surrounded by black-armored human soldiers. Their weapons remained aimed directly at him. But Ward simply stared silently. Vila laughed weakly despite the blood covering his armor. "So, humanity wins." Ward's expression never changed. This was never about winning. Vila frowned. Then what was it about? Ward stepped closer through drifting smoke. You came to Earth believing humans were weak. Vila said nothing. You burned our worlds. Another step. You killed our families. Closer still. And you thought we would surrender. The damaged flagship groaned violently around them. Vila tightened his grip on his plasma blade. You could end this now, he whispered. Kill me. Ward looked at him for several long seconds. Then he lowered his weapon. No. Vila stared in confusion. Ward's voice became colder than space itself. You're going to live. Silence. You will return to the Senate. Another explosion shook the corridor. And you will tell the galaxy what happened here. For the first time since the war began, Vila looked afraid. Hours later, the surviving members of the Galactic Senate gathered once again beneath the silver domes of the central chamber. But nothing felt the same anymore. Entire delegations were missing. Trade systems had collapsed. Refugee fleets filled nearby sectors. And every senator now understood one terrifying truth. Humanity had become the most dangerous force in known space. The massive chamber fell silent as the doors opened. Commander Vila entered slowly. Alone. His burned armor was cracked and stained with blood. One arm hung uselessly at his side while deep scars crossed his face. The once proud conqueror now looked broken. Whispers spread instantly through the Senate. He survived. What happened at Orion Gate? Where is the Dominion fleet? Vila walked silently toward the center platform. Then he looked up at the thousands of watching senators. For several seconds, he could not speak. Because he finally understood what Ambassador Seraphine tried to warn him about. Humans were not dangerous because of their weapons. Or fleets. Or technology. Humans were dangerous because once they lost everything, they stopped fearing death. Vila's voice finally echoed through the chamber. The Dominion is gone. Complete silence followed. A senator stood trembling. The humans accepted surrender. Vila slowly closed his eyes. No. Fear spread visibly across the Senate floor. Another senator whispered nervously. What are the humans now? Vila remembered the black warships emerging from darkness. The soldiers walking through plasma fire. The endless pursuit across the stars. The message left behind on every battlefield. We are still here. When he finally answered, his voice shook. They are hunters. At the back of the chamber, Ambassador Seraphine lowered her eyes sadly. Because the galaxy had learned the lesson too late. Humanity never wanted war. But once war came, humans never let their enemies escape. If you enjoyed this HFY story, subscribe for more epic human revenge, galactic war, and sci-fi survival stories from the darkest corners of space. Humanity's next hunt is only beginning.